Hey there, so I have something a little different for you today. Recently I was asked how I got into manga and anime, and I never thought that such a simple question could lead to such a complicated answer. I tried to narrow it down to one series, the one series that got me into it, but that didn't feel right. The first series I ever got into isn't necessarily what got me into manga. It more or less just gave me a taste for comic books as a whole. Even after having read about 5 series or so, I wouldn't have considered myself a manga fan per se. I still read tons of other types of comic books and novels. I was just a kid who liked reading and who happened to mostly read graphic novels. So after really pondering for a bit, I narrowed it down to 6 series. So today I'll be sharing with you those 6 series I picked up along the way that made me the dedicated manga fan I am today. I won't be going into details about their plot, nor will I be reviewing them at all. I'll just say a few words about their contribution to my relationship with manga today. So let's get into it. Before we get started though, I'd like to welcome you to MangAnalysis, where I do little reviews of the manga I've been reading. If you like what you see and would like to see more, make sure to subscribe and leave a like, maybe even leave a comment. Let's get a conversation going. The first series I ever got interested in was Dragon Ball. I remember watching an episode on TV when I was like 8 or 9 or something and thinking, wow, this is sick! And not even kidding, the next day I walked into a bookstore with my mom and they had 2 miscellaneous Dragon Ball volumes. I think it was volume 18 and 12 or something like that. I asked my mom if she could buy them for me, and she did. And that's how I got my first 2 manga volumes ever. I had no idea you were supposed to read them in order, or that there was even an order to begin with. Like, the fact that they were numbered didn't even make me question it at all. And then being confused over not knowing what was going on also didn't even faze me. Bright kid. But I read those 2 books over and over and over again. I was obsessed with the art style. Eventually I was able to get more of those books, and I started noticing that when I read the books whose numbers followed the one I previously read, the story made more sense. The art of continuity. That definitely enriched my reading experience. Despite buying a fair amount of volumes, I never really finished reading the whole thing. I guess I didn't really feel like I needed to. Despite that, Dragon Ball did 2 things for me. It made me curious about other series out there, and it made me want to own them. Specifically, I was already really attracted to the look of books on a shelf. I decided to chase that feeling. Also, fun aside, Dragon Ball was also my first experience with anime. I used to watch it every night before bed, and that really got me into other anime that played on the same channel. More on that later. The second series I got into was Shaman King. When I was in grade 5 or so, a friend of mine came to me and was like, "Yo, you like Dragon Ball, eh? You watched Yu-Gi-Oh? Damn, baby, you might like this book too then." And then he shoved Shaman King volume 23 in my face. And I read it, and I thought it was sick. I never gave it back because he moved, and I guess I forgot he had lent it to me, but whatever. I stayed with that one volume for a few years, reading it over and over and over again, just like I did with my Dragon Ball Z books. One Christmas a few years later, I figured I could ask for the first 5 volumes, and I got them. I actually read the series in order, which was nice. I don't really like Shaman King anymore. I reread it last year, and while I appreciate the nostalgia and what it was going for, I think I've moved on from it. It'll always have a special place in my heart, but my tastes have changed since. It just be that way sometimes. The third series I got into was Neon Genesis Evangelion. I actually just watched the entire series recently, including all 6 movies. It feels like I started this series so long ago and I finally watched the entire thing and its ending. Feels like some sort of closure. Anyway, not long after I was introduced to Shaman King, a girlfriend of my older brother's was like, "Hey kiddo, did you read them Japanese books? I got 5 at home and I don't read them. Do you want them?" And I was like, "Yeah." And that's how I embarked on the very long, complicated path that is Neon Genesis Evangelion. As soon as I read the first book, I was really interested in the world and how it was written. The whole man and a machine versus God and angels thing was super fascinating to me at that age, and I guess it still is today. But I read the first 5 books that I now own, and sort of didn't even think to try and buy the 6th one. They were really old, so I figured maybe they'd be out of print, or that it was such a niche, unknown series that only a handful of people may be aware of it, therefore making buying the books difficult. LOL. Idiot child. Anyway, one day I walked into the bookstore and there it was, the 6th and 7th volumes, and I was really excited. I bought them and continued it and eventually finished it. What's cool about Evangelion for me is that I'm not really a fan of mecha stuff, as you guys might know if you've watched some of my previous videos. Never was, most likely never will be, but I really like that one. To this day, I think it has to be one of my favorite mecha related pieces of fiction because it's so much more than just the mecha. The next series is Samurai Deeper Kyo, my first real manga love. I've loved the series from the very first book that I read and still do today. Again, I started this one in the middle and I wasn't able to read it in order, like at all. I read number 15 first, then 1 and 3, and then 12 and 2 and so on. I had randomly read up to book 22 before I had read all first 10. It was stupid. Despite that though, it still holds up for me. I reread this series every few years and it still gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling. It had everything I loved at the time. A super cool, edgy, dark, anti-hero protagonist, a ton of awesome samurais with super over-the-top techniques that they had to scream the name of out loud, great fight scenes, a super cast of interesting characters, tons of power creeping, which wasn't something I disliked back then, only some plot holes, and a great ending. It has many flaws, like so many, but I love them. I'll always look back to this series with love. I remember when I finally bought the last volume, the 38th, I reread the entire series in order for the first time, and it felt fantastic. It felt right. This was the first series that I actively made an effort to collect from the get-go. It took a while with Shaman King and Evangelion to get started and committed, and I never did finish Dragon Ball Z, but Samurai Deeper Kyo was the one where collecting finally started to make sense. So we're almost there, 2 left to go. With that being said, the next is Naruto. Hey, that was a pretty cool rhyme. So straight up, I don't like Naruto. That's not true. I loved it when I was younger, and now I hate it. So, yeah. I reread the entire series this year for some reason. Like, maybe I felt like 2020 hadn't hurt me enough. Maybe I thought I should suffer through 2021 too. I don't know. I did it, and it sucked. I got into the series a little after I got into Samurai Deeper Kyo, but this one I actually read in order from the beginning. I had the full Naruto experience. Woo! I think I got really annoyed with it around book 52 or so, but I had gotten this far, right? So I had to finish it. My shelves craved it. Look, this isn't a review of Naruto, nor am I really going to get into why I dislike it so much. All I'm going to say is this: it should have ended after the Pain arc. You know what? Actually, it should have ended with the Zabuza arc. That's when it peaked, like 3 books in. Credit where credit is due though, Naruto did produce 3 of the best fictional characters of all time in my opinion. Kakashi Hatake, Hitachi Uchiha, and Minato Namikaze. Great storylines and awesome character designs. That's it. And now for the last series that really cemented me into the world of manga, Death Note. There she is, the crown jewel of manga. It's no secret that I love Death Note. I think it was like the first line of my first video. Death Note is my absolute favorite piece of fiction ever written. It did a lot for me. I think I read it at a good age. I was about 14 or something when I started reading it. I was at the age where questioning ethics and morality and developing critical thinking were becoming bigger parts of my life. And Death Note gave me the push that I needed to really delve deep into that stuff. Fiction that can make you question your life and the world you live in have a special place in my heart, and this series was the first to really do it for me. Now, just to show you how much I like the series, I actually wrote an essay about it in university. It was a sick essay, and I got a really good grade on it, and it was good stuff. I remember walking into a bookstore, and they had this giant poster for the art for the first volume, and they had tons of copies, like, please buy this book, it's apparently really good. I flipped through it quickly. I didn't even know what it was about. I just liked the art so much. I bought it and bam, changed my life. The art was stunning and really pushed me as an artist. Takeshi Obata, like I mentioned in my Platinum End video, is my favorite artist of all time, and that was my first exposure to him. One day maybe I'll make a review video about Death Note. It's just really difficult to put into words how much Death Note means to me. I just don't want it to be 10 minutes of me saying it's really good, trust me, over and over again. I want there to be substance, and for that I need to organize all my thoughts and put them down on paper, and that sounds really intimidating and overwhelming and straight up difficult. But who knows, maybe I'll do it. I'm glad I found it when I did, and that it was the last push I needed to really throw myself into the world of manga collecting. I knew then and there that manga was a beautiful thing and something I wanted to keep in my life, and not one day has gone by where I've regretted it, so good stuff. Before moving on to the end, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Inuyasha. I never read the books, but watched the anime religiously, and it had a huge impact on me. Inuyasha was the first series I ever bought in anime format, and thus started my anime collection. I don't only buy books, I also have a decently large anime collection. Would you be interested in me making a video about that? Let me know in the comments. So, Typically, I end my videos by asking the question, should you check these series out? And honestly, I'm not sure. A lot of these are pretty old at this point, which is wild because when I think that some of these started nearly 20 years ago, I feel super old. But such is life. But yeah, they all have a special place in my heart, and some of these I genuinely love and think stood the test of time, notably Samurai Deeper Kyo and Death Note. And of course, I don't think anyone could ever call Neon Genesis Evangelion anything but timeless. I look back at these mostly with nostalgia, and I know that nostalgia can veil a lot of the bad stuff. I'm aware. While I may not recommend all of these, I do encourage you to check maybe the first chapters out. You'll see things I'm not sure you'll see in series coming out these days, for better or for worse. But many of the series coming out now that we love today wouldn't be here without them. Yes, even Naruto. I'd love it if you told me in the comments what series got you into manga. Maybe you were like me and only read a volume here and there and you slowly got into it. Maybe you had an older sibling that forced manga on you and here you are now, gobbling it up yourself, forcing it on to younger children. Or I don't know, maybe you were really into anime and slowly transitioned to manga. Regardless, let me know. I'd love to read about your experience. Well, those were the series that got me into manga. I hope you enjoyed this little video, and if you did indeed enjoy it, consider subscribing. This was MangAnalysis, and I'll see you in the next one.